If the measure of a city's prosperity is calculated in direct proportion to the growth in the number of homeless people, then Philadelphia today is teetering on the brink of a red alert. From streets once vibrant with history to the dark corners of alleys, Philadelphia is now filled with the shadows of the homeless. They not only lost their homes, but also their sense of being recognized as human beings. And just as that crisis deepened, President Donald Trump's promise to crack down on homelessness loomed over Philadelphia like a dark cloud. The promise, presented as a solution, instead plunged the most vulnerable deeper into a spiral of despair. In today's video, we won't just look at cold numbers, but we'll delve into the heart of Philadelphia to find the answer to the question: does that oppressive policy truly bring shelter and stability, or does it simply remove them from social visibility? This is not just a political or policy issue, but also a poignant challenge to the community's humanity toward vulnerable lives. Perhaps it's hard to believe that Philadelphia, where the Declaration of Independence was signed, once hailed as the heart of American democracy, is now filled with makeshift tent cities. The streets that were once bustling with tourists, the parks that were once peaceful, are now filled with the shadows of people who have nowhere left to go. That contrast is not only shocking, but also evokes a deep sadness. From being a symbol of freedom, Philadelphia is becoming the homeless capital. Philadelphia is not the city with the highest number of homeless people in the United States, but the rate of increase is more alarming than anywhere else. It is estimated that over 5,200 people are currently living on the streets this year, an increase of nearly 10% compared to last year, and the third consecutive year reaching a record high. This is also the first time since 2020 that the number has exceeded 5,000, signaling the outbreak of a simmering crisis. On Reddit, many people expressed disappointment and confusion as the growth rate of the pandemic spiraled out of control, especially in center city areas. Upon closer inspection, we realized these are not just soulless numbers. In Kensington, just a few miles from Independence Hall, 35% of the homeless are crammed into dilapidated buildings. Entering this place is like stepping into a post-apocalyptic film, where tired eyes, hunched figures, and fragile attempts at survival are set against a backdrop that evokes the ultimate sense of despair. For many, the line between a roof and a plastic tarp is only separated by an unexpected event in life. The cause of this crisis is not just a single event, but a whole series of intertwined tragedies that have accumulated and compounded over the years. From the severe shortage of affordable housing to a social safety net that is increasingly squeezed. From the prejudiced views toward the homeless to the city's approach of criminalizing poverty itself. All of this has pushed this crisis into a vicious cycle, where, instead of being healed, the crisis has only worsened. For the generation that once knew Philadelphia as the city of opportunity, that memory is now just a distant dream. People who were once proud of their close-knit communities and family picnics in the park now have to witness those very places being turned into makeshift shelters for thousands of unfortunate people. Regret for the past mingled with a sense of helplessness in the present, and a big question for the future. Does the American dream still have a place in this city? And then, when the government's new decrees were issued, instead of opening up solutions, they made the already harsh reality even harsher. Can Philadelphia regain its former glory, or will it forever be a mirror reflecting a society that is losing itself? That question isn't just for this city, but for the entire country, where every social crisis serves as a reminder that anyone could be the next victim. Can you believe it? Right in Philadelphia, poverty and homelessness are gradually being turned into an illegal activity. The city, once considered a symbol of freedom and opportunity, is now witnessing the unprecedented clearing of tent camps. Between historical squares and the realities of life, a widening gap is emerging, where outward order is maintained, but lives on the margins are swept away without a clear end. Previously, local authorities still had flexibility. They could coordinate with social organizations, consider each case individually, and prioritize providing temporary housing and medical services. But since Donald Trump's executive order was signed, priorities have shifted. Instead of care, the new policy focuses on rapid cleanup, forced relocation, and stricter federal standards. On the surface, the results look satisfactory. The rows of tents have disappeared, the sidewalks are clean, and the city seems to be regaining order. But if you look deeper, a series of dangerous problems become apparent. Many experts warn that forced displacement doesn't address the root causes, but rather exacerbates the lack of stable housing, mental health disorders, and lives already burdened by social ills. In Philadelphia, Center City, which once stretched for blocks with tents all the way to the museums, could be wiped out in just a few weeks. But in reality, no one knows where those people went. And the camps, after being cleared, would reappear on other streets just a few months later. The greater risk lies in how society begins to perceive things. Many residents fear the prospect of a new Alcatraz. Treatment facilities where support is replaced by control. As the public increasingly equates homeless people with criminals, stigma deepens, and faith in human resilience gradually disappears. What should have been an opportunity for healing is becoming a spiral, pushing them further away from the community. Is a quick cleanup really the solution? Or is it just the city's way of hiding social cracks that have never been mended? And more importantly, are we witnessing a dangerous trend? The criminalization of poverty under the glamorous guise of urban order. What do you think about this pressing issue? Please share your thoughts in the comments section below. Modern-day Philadelphia is no longer the pristine image of historic streets leading to Independence Hall or parks that were once the pride of the community. Beneath that bustling exterior, new homeless hotspots are erupting at an alarming rate. They not only caused the city to break down, but also became a symbol of an unprecedented crisis, where repressive policies only deepened the wounds. One of the hardest hit areas is Kensington, located just a few miles from the city's historic center. What was once a working-class residential area is now likened to a post-apocalyptic film set. Dilapidated rows of houses, sidewalks crammed with tents, gaunt faces trudging through the traffic. Residents describe it as the country's largest slum, where despair and dangerous temptations lurk in every corner. With a high concentration of homeless people, Kensington has become a symbol of failure in managing both social and public health aspects. But it's not just Kensington. The streets of Center City, which were once tourist destinations, are also changing rapidly. The tent camps that once stretched right up to the museum and along the parkway could now be cleared in just a few weeks under the new policy. However, that disappearance was only temporary. The camps sprang up again elsewhere, creating an endless cycle. Images of streets that have been refreshed on the surface, but in reality, it's just a crisis being displaced from one point to another. In West Philadelphia, a community once known for its strong bonds is also witnessing significant change. The parks, once the site of picnics and family gatherings, now have dozens of temporary tents erected within them. Local residents couldn't hide their disappointment as the memory of a safe, friendly city was gradually replaced by scenes of unrest and anxiety. For older people who lived in Philadelphia in the 70s and 80s, that feeling of nostalgia is multiplied many times over. The breakdown comes not only from the rapid increase in the homeless population, but also from the convergence of multiple factors. A lack of affordable housing, a rise in mental health issues, and coercive cleanup policies. As the federal government pushes for tough measures, many families and individuals are forced to leave their temporary shelters without receiving any long-term options. They disappear from one street only to reappear on another, and this vicious cycle makes the city increasingly difficult to control. The solution cannot simply be surface-level clean-up. It must go deeper to the core, providing affordable housing, expanding mental health services, and creating sustainable job opportunities for those who have lost their foundation. Some major brands like Amazon have launched multi-million-dollar investment programs in affordable housing projects in several major cities. Such initiatives, if expanded to Philadelphia, could create a truly lasting impact instead of short-term enforcement measures. If even areas that were once the pride and memory of a generation are breaking down in the face of the homelessness crisis, what does the American dream have left to offer future generations? The cycle of homelessness in Philadelphia didn't begin on a single day or with a single event. It's a series of interwoven tragedies that have accumulated over many years, from the crisis of affordable housing shortages and the weakening of the social safety net, to the community's prejudiced views toward those who have lost their homes. It's a seemingly endless cycle where the solutions offered don't even touch the root causes and often make the wounds worse. Instead of healing, the city inadvertently turned poverty into a form of sin, as policies and management measures were designed as if criminalizing homelessness. One of the biggest bottlenecks is the severe shortage of affordable housing. For decades, Philadelphia has seen a dizzying increase in rental prices, while the incomes of low and middle-income workers have not kept pace. Many urban redevelopment projects focus on building high-end apartments and modern shopping centers, but neglect the thousands of families who need affordable housing. When the door to the housing market closes, makeshift tents on the sidewalk become the only option. And it was right here that the spiral of despair began to tighten its grip on them. The social security system, which was once expected to be a safety net, can no longer fulfill its original function. Meager support, complex procedures, and implementation delays leave many people in a void, unable to access healthcare, psychological support, or reintegration programs. Those who have lost their jobs, fallen ill, or experienced life shocks easily fall to the bottom of society, but it is extremely difficult to climb back up. The support didn't come quickly enough, wasn't deep enough, and sometimes didn't reach the right places. The way the city handles crises is often counterproductive. The temporary camp cleanup, campaigns, and enforcement measures, instead of addressing the root causes, only push people out of this place so they could set up tents in another corner. There is no long-term housing program, no reform in social security, and the cycle continues, losing homes, setting up tents, being cleared out, and then losing homes again. It's like a sad song being played over and over, never reaching an end. In that context, what's needed is not just a temporary solution, but a fundamental shift in how we perceive the problem. Initiatives from non-profit organizations, along with the support of large corporations like United Way or Habitat for Humanity, can be a starting point. When businesses, communities, and governments collaborate and invest in affordable housing, mental health services, and reintegration programs, this cycle can gradually slow down and eventually stop spinning. If a city, once considered a symbol of opportunity and freedom, can no longer protect its most vulnerable people, what does the American dream have left for future generations? Philadelphia was once one of the gems of the American East, a city steeped in the history of the nation's founding, where millions once flocked to seek a better life. But today, many areas of the city have a completely different look. Abandoned buildings, quiet streets, interspersed with the makeshift tents of the homeless. From the image of a bustling metropolis, Philadelphia now faces the risk of becoming a ghost town, as a silent wave of migration is sweeping away both residents and hopes for a brighter future. The cause of this migration is not only the worsening homelessness situation, but also the people's loss of faith in the system. When once safe residential areas are now filled with scenes of poverty, when parks or squares become makeshift shelters, many families have chosen to leave the city in search of a new place to live. In fact, the trend of leaving urban areas for the suburbs or states with lower living costs has become a widespread phenomenon. not just in Philadelphia, but also in many other major US cities. Specific figures on the rate of population migration are constantly changing, but the general trend shows that the city is gradually losing its appeal to the working and middle classes. For them, maintaining life here is becoming increasingly difficult, as rental prices far exceed average incomes, while the social welfare system cannot keep pace with the crisis. This creates an ever-widening gap. Stable families leave, leaving behind communities that were already vulnerable and are now even more fragile. That departure not only deprived Philadelphia of tax revenue from its citizens, but also weakened the community spirit. The neighborhoods where children once played and adults gathered are now becoming desolate. Small businesses are losing customers, schools are losing students, and churches are losing parishioners. A city that once prided itself on its close-knit communities is now witnessing that connection being eroded day by day. And for those who remained, they were forced to live in a city with two separate worlds. On one side, areas revitalizing thanks to investment and gentrification, and on the other, increasingly widespread poverty oases. Sadly, it is the most vulnerable who are most severely affected. While the city focuses resources on maintaining its image in tourist or commercial centers, neglected poor areas are further trapped in a cycle of crime, unemployment, and homelessness. The wave of migration not only took away residents, but also brought with it the belief that Philadelphia is a place worth settling down in for life. Instead, the city is gradually depicted as a temporary place where people come and go, no longer retaining the meaning of a permanent home. However, there is still a glimmer of hope if the community and social organizations work together. Some places have adopted models for investing in affordable housing, supporting the reintegration of the homeless, and revitalizing neighborhoods through public-private partnerships. Organizations like Habitat for Humanity have shown that rebuilding communities from small homes can make a big difference, not only helping individuals, but also restoring faith to an entire neighborhood. The question isn't just how many more people Philadelphia will lose, but how much faith the city will retain. If even a place that was once a symbol of freedom and opportunity becomes desolate, what can America offer future generations? Facing a growing homelessness crisis exacerbated by new policies, Philadelphia cannot stand idly by. The city was forced to react, albeit passively, as it faced pressure from the federal government while also dealing with community outrage. City authorities claim they are trying to strike a balance between enforcing the ordinance and maintaining humanity in their measures, but the reality is much more complex. The cleanup campaigns for the tent camps were implemented at a rapid pace, but their true effectiveness remains a big question mark. In the community, the reaction is also clearly divided into two distinct streams. A portion of residents, especially those living near the old tent camps, admit they feel relieved that the unsightly scene is no longer before their eyes. They see it as a positive signal for urban order. But many others also spoke out against it, arguing that the city was pushing the most vulnerable people into a new cycle of oblivion. For them, removing the image of tents is just a superficial solution, while the root causes of the crisis remain untouched. However, the city government also faces a difficult reality. A tight budget, federal pressure, and community divisions make it difficult for any solution to satisfy everyone. Temporary support programs like emergency housing or transfer to mental health treatment facilities are implemented, but they're too small in scale compared to the need. Many people quickly return to the streets after leaving the tent camps because they don't find long-term stability in short-term solutions. In that chaotic picture, some major brands and charities participated, bringing a glimmer of hope. United Way is an example, with programs focused on emergency financial assistance, connecting the homeless with job opportunities, and rebuilding trust within the community. These initiatives cannot replace the government's responsibility, but at least they open a path to somewhat alleviate the compounding tragedies. Can a city truly recover by erasing superficial traces? Or does it need to confront the deep-seated pain directly? That question doesn't have a right or wrong answer. It's a perspective from deep within each of us. What do you think? Please share your thoughts in the comments section below. Philadelphia was once a symbol of freedom and opportunity, where the Declaration of Independence was signed and where the American dream was nurtured across generations. But today, that city is grappling with a grim reality. Streets filled with homelessness, makeshift camps springing up every place, and a growing sense of distrust creeping into the hearts of its residents. The big question is, can Philadelphia bounce back, or will it remain trapped in a cycle of social crisis? In fact, Philadelphia is not the only city facing an increasingly severe homelessness crisis. But the difference lies in the speed of the outbreak and the extent of its spread. Areas that were once cultural and artistic destinations or sources of historical pride are now centers of despair. The tightening of new federal policies put the city in a passive position. It had to clean up to meet regulations while also scrambling to maintain humanity in its response. It's a difficult problem, and so far there hasn't been a truly complete solution. However, even in the darkness, a glimmer of hope still shines. Philadelphia is a city with a tradition of resilience. Its history has repeatedly witnessed major crises, from economic downturns and rising crime to social inequality. And every time, the community finds a way to rise again. Today, many social organizations, volunteer groups, and even ordinary residents are seeking to contribute to alleviate the burden. They provide meals, organize temporary employment programs, and most importantly, give the feeling that these homeless individuals are still seen and understood. In that difficult journey, major brands can also contribute to making a difference. United Way is an example, with programs that connect resources, provide emergency financial assistance, and rebuild job opportunities. The involvement of such organizations not only brings practical resources, but also sends a powerful message. Philadelphia is not alone, and recovery is entirely possible if everyone works together. So, can the city once called the cradle of liberty once again become a symbol of opportunity? Or shall we let it gradually fade into darkness, becoming a mirror reflecting a society that is increasingly turning its back on the most vulnerable? Philadelphia is at a historic crossroads. Either it finds a way to heal its social wounds, or it accepts that those cracks will continue to widen, turning the entire city into a symbol of helplessness. Do we have the courage to look directly at the real causes? From affordable housing and social welfare to empathy, and change together? Or will it all just stop at superficial cleanups, only to face the same obsession again tomorrow? If you have any thoughts on this situation, please share them in the comments so we can discuss them together. Don't forget to hit the like button to show your support. Share this story so more people can learn about it, and subscribe to the channel to follow our next videos, where we'll continue to delve into the hidden corners of society that few mention, but which touch the hearts of millions. The content in this video is created for the purpose of analyzing and exploring social issues, and is not intended to incite, blame, or make any extreme political statements. All data, information, and quotes in the video are compiled from various public sources, may change over time, and do not represent absolute truth in all circumstances. The perspective presented here is analytical and thought-provoking, encouraging audiences to reflect and engage in multifaceted discussions rather than treating it as the final word. We respect every individual and community, and always strive to promote empathy and understanding, working together toward humane and sustainable solutions for society.